Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Hope y'all are doing well. We've been doing some different content on the channel, and things have been a little quieter since we ran our first Mythic League tournament this last weekend. And I'm going to have a bit of a tournament report, the finals game, and some interviews with the finalists, Knight and Tino, for those of you who know those players, also in Team MTG SS. Really, really excellent players, and I'm super excited to have them on the channel later this week. But for today, I just wanted to talk about how it looks like, based on what I think it was Watsy, Lucas, or Jay shared, that we're going to have time, we're going to have a little extra time to climb into top 100 if that's your goal, or hit a certain number in top 100. I usually aim for like top 20-ish, and so I'm hoping to get maybe a little bit higher this season. We'll see. Things at work have been kind of busy, but other than that, I just wanted to bring a video of a different deck option. And just huge, huge shout out to Awdasea, who is a very, very high Mythic player, who's in a lot of the different community discords, which is awesome. And I also, reached out to them and I was like, hey, I really want to do a video on your deck. I've been playing it more. Because this is a deck that Awdasea played in the Mythic Tournament, absolutely crushed me playing Garruk. And, aside from Teferi, which I think is a pretty tough matchup, I honestly went into that and I was like, oh, this should be fine. And immediately I started to be like, oh, this is not fine. This is not a good matchup. And I've always been really down on Serra, although I always felt the control versions were more competitive than the aggro versions. They still never really found the right balance, and I think Awdasea has found a really good shell. Maybe there are some numbers to tweak, but I think the list is very, very strong, and I think very, very well thought out. Does it have its bad matchups? Absolutely, but when the meta has been a lot of Garruk, in particular, this is a really good answer to that, and I think a lot of the other mid-range decks it does pretty well into. It can beat out some of the control decks, and I think generally it has a pretty decent game against the aggro decks as well. So without further ado, and I know I've basically never played this Planeswalker on this channel, so I think it's going to be a really fun learning experience for all of us. So, what are we playing? And I'll try and be mindful of time, because sometimes I can spend a little too much time, but this is the Awdasea anti-Garruk, and I imagine they had that in mind when they were building this. I'm pretty sure when I was talking with him, that's what they said. So, no one-drops, right? And I think that there aren't really that many exciting one-drops in white. I mean, there's basically just Mother of Runes and Caracal. But you just, in this sort of deck, you just don't really need it. You really get a lot of value out of your 2s and up. We're going to play some games today, and you'll sort of see. But obviously, the general gist, you're using Sacred Sanctum to continue to buffer your life total. And for those of you who might not know, Serra's starting health is very low. It's 20. Technically, it starts at 21 because you gain a life at the start of your turn. So with the Sanctum, you're essentially starting at 24. Now, if we think about Chandra, right, which is a deck we should be considering, because it kind of sets the pace for a lot of decks in terms of their life total, we're starting really low. And that's why I think Sacred Sanctum, especially against the aggro decks, is really, really good. And you're able to trade your life total for board position and card advantage in the mid-range matchups. And of course, the same kind of goes for control. So you're running some incidental heal package, and then you're just running a lot of cards that I think have a lot of really good play in the format. So when we think about what Garruk does, Garruk is just trying to apply pressure with a lot of different creatures that are just very efficient. And what I realized early on into the matchup is that it's really hard to overcome Serra's life total unless you have a pretty strong draw, and that they have a pretty weak one. Because what happens early is you get to play Leonin healer, buff your life total, Desperate Prayer. I actually, in Awdasea's match, they Desperate Prayered into their Shroud, or it was a Second Son, because they gained 10 life off of it, which I was like, that's pretty rough. Obviously, that's not going to happen most of the time, but you're always going to gain at least 2 life which draw a card, 2 life is not too bad a rate. Serra's Disciple, although it was nerfed to 1 toughness, I think this card does a ton of work. It's a 2/1 little stupid, crappy card. And then you're almost always getting something that has some decent value to it. And the deck just has a lot of really solid card advantage. And I think that is what was going to make this deck work in a control shell, because it has cards like Serra Disciple to bridge you from the early game into the mid game. And that card I've just been continually impressed with. I really like the 1 Alarm Bell. You've got plenty of 2s to fish out, right? The Watchwolf, Serra Disciple, Leonin Healer. And just having 1 to trim, often it's really been helpful, even in the late game, to just thin out those last couple 2-drops that you might not have hit, so that you're able to hit your Second Sun or just any of your higher cost spells that you're really hoping to hit. You up your percentage when Alarm Bell just takes that creature out of your deck. And I think 1 is the right number. I think 2, you would probably have to run a few more 2-drops, but it really feels really great. Watchwolf, just one of the best 2-drop in the game, the best stat line for what you're getting, which is excellent against aggro and even mid-range decks. Now, Serra's Judgment. Being on the other side of this card, it feels pretty bad. Being able to take out that Ooze, take out Krav, obviously it's really good against Death's Shadow in particular. I think Serra's Judgment just is in a pretty good spot for the meta right now. I used to think it was too slow, too clunky, not applicable enough, but now that things have shifted to more of the Death's Shadow, the black midrange and green midrange decks, I think Serra's Judgment actually does quite a bit of work. And what's annoying is it clogs up their board, right? Because they can't attack, and you could just sit there not attacking yourself if you need to. And it's kind of the same principle with Power Word Stun. And obviously in a Vraska deck it's a little bit worse because they can just sacrifice their creatures and replace them. But for other decks, it can be really awkward. So having access to Serra's Judgment, Power Word Stun, and Immolating Glare being just really efficient 1-for-1s is really good against Garruk, because Garruk doesn't have that much card advantage, and really is just putting a lot of power into 1 card, as cheaply as possible. And then some of them are a little bit bigger, right? But they're just really, really efficient. They're 7/7s for 4 with the Ooze, 7/7 with Krav. Sometimes you're getting that Death Shadow ahead of schedule. Serra's Judgment, Immolating Glare, and Power Word Stun all answer that very, very well. And I think that that's just a really strong removal package. And Pinpoint Avenger, I used to really think about when this card was going to be good in the format, and I really struggled to figure out when that is. I think against Garruk it's pretty good, right? Garruk is always attacking. Often they will just turn a creature into 1 toughness on their turn, right? Or 2 toughness, and maybe you can trade off. Pinpoint Avenger tends to do quite a bit of work, I think, into the aggro mid-range decks right now. It just tends to be a very efficient creature, and it's 3 mana, 3/4, that gives you some advantage. What's really crazy about Pinpoint Avenger is that it can combo really well with Sylvia, right? You play Sylvia, knock their stuff to 1, they try to Alpha Strike you, the following turn, whatever you didn't block dies to the Pinpoint Avenger. But the other thing that works, kind of the same principle as Sylvia, is Pinpoint Avenger with Icing Death. And I've really come up on this card. This card just, it's pretty hard to play around, unless you're really, really thinking about it and trying to make the most efficient kind of toughness and power trades. But when you're running stuff like Pinpoint Avenger and Sylvia Brightspear, and you're able to trade off these kind of dorky creatures to get a creature's toughness lower than its power, it's just really easy to set up these Icing Death turns where you're killing their entire board, and you just have a 6/8 flyer that's going to be really hard for them to deal with. So this card, I think, is just positioned really, really well right now. Shrine of Valor, I used to think it was just kind of too slow, too clunky, but we're kind of in this mid-range meta now, right? Like, Garruk is driving that, Nis is kind of driving that. Other people are trying more decks with Death Shadow in it. And what Shrine of Valor does really well in this deck is you get your 2/3 up front, right, which is like a pretty bad investment, but you get to kind of bank this 4/4 flyer, and oftentimes you just need to like play Shrine of Valor, put a body on the board, then play like Sylvia Brightspear or like Trostani Second Sun's Dawn, and like you're usually setting up some sort of sweeper, whether that's Day of Judgment, Pinpoint Avengers, um, Sylvia Brightspear, or Icing Death. And so it's just really good for, you get to play your thing, it saves you some life or it blocks a creature, you wipe the board, and then you get a 4/4 flyer on your board, and your opponent's starting from 0. So I think it actually, I've gone back and forth, maybe like 1 is better than 2, but I've often been very happy to get this card. And with Geist of St. Traft, I did not forget about you, friend. What's nice is you get to play this after you've played a Shrine of Valor and used it, and if you don't have enough mana to cast an Angel, so let's say it's, I don't know, some sequence where you just don't have enough mana, when you put the Angel in play from Shrine of Valor, hello, it counts as coming into play, so it gives Geist the armor. And it's really nice to have armor on this card for a number of reasons, but sometimes you just chip away at your opponent a little bit, or you prime them for Icing Death. And then we sort of get to the late game package here, right? Sylvia Brightspear, I do think, is a very efficient card into the creature decks right now. I think Trostani really allows to bridge you into the late game, whether you're in a good position to ramp, you need some blockers, or you need to heal yourself, or some of your cards might have lower toughness. She can be really great. Second Sun's Dawn, it's just one of the best spells for a white controlled deck. It gives your deck inevitability. Serra and Teferi can gain kind of the most life in the game with the Sacred Sanctum. And so when your opponent starts to fall behind and you're just like digging through your deck, pulling stuff out with Alarm Bell, drawing with Desperate Prayer, ripping stuff out with Sun Titan, right, because it's draw the creature from the deck with the lowest cost, you're just enabling the ability to draw Second Sun very, very quickly. Day of Judgment, right, it's a sweeper. Same thing with Second Sun's Dawn, so you're technically running 4 sweepers with that. Icing Death is kind of a 5th. And then, just having Strahd so that you either play it, they have to respond to it, or they lose. Or, right, you play it, let's say they answer it, then you draw your Second Sun's Dawn, you deal 10 to your opponent. Strahd can sometimes be pretty awkward, but I would say for the most part, it's really good to have a very beefy late game package like we do in the deck. So that's it. And, I think there's more testing required, but I just think generally the deck does pretty well. I've played almost 20 games with it over the last couple days, and I'm 15-3. Small sample size, and it really is matchup dependent, but generally I think we've been doing pretty well with the deck. So into Vraska, I'm fine to keep 1 shrine. I'm hoping to get some 2-drops here. Alarm Bell's great. I've played this matchup a bit. It can depend on what our opponent's draw is, but I feel like generally this is a pretty decent matchup for us. We've got more inevitability than Vraska does with the Second Suns, and they don't pressure your life total all that much. So we're going to likely gain a good bit of life, clog up the board, deal with some of their threats, and then close out the game from there. We've got some good options here, and I think because we've got a little bit of time, it's interesting. I like all of these options, but I think I like playing Serra's Disciple first, just to see what Angel we hit, and that can kind of tell us how our curve needs to be. All right, Fallen Angel, not a bad one. Not the best, but certainly serviceable. I will take 0. I respect the test if I'm sleeping method here. Shambler, very classic. Oh, we got Geist here. I think it's just the most efficient to play this. I'm not going to block this anyway. And if it eats a removal spell, it does. But I'd rather use 3 mana here. I'll either Alarm Bell, Watchwolf, but I might just Shrine of Valor next turn. Yeah, I'm going to take 3. Could also Angel if they don't kill Geist, just because it's a really efficient play. Okay. Venom Archer is kind of an annoying one to hit. Alright, so we've drawn the Day of Judgment. Now we can start kind of crafting the way we want to play these turns out to get the most value out of it. So I think just to get the value off of Geist, I am going to just play out the Angel here. Get the armor. It gives me a decent block here if I want, or here, or here. And then next turn we can play Shrine potentially, or like a 2-3, depending on if they swing in. And then we'll Shrine, and then we can Day of Judgment, and that's pretty decent for us. So no reason to attack here. No good attacks. So we're just going to kind of make our opponent commit to the board, get the most out of Day of Judgment, and then when we kind of reset things, we should be a little bit ahead, depending on their draw. Okay. I think I will take this. Oh, interesting. Huh. I could trade here and just block here. But if I block, I could also block here, and then Avenger will deal 1 to all of it. It's an interesting scenario. But I don't really want to take the 6. So I think I'd rather just take this block. And I think I'll just let this live for another turn. I don't really want to give them the buff on their turn. And we're not under like too much pressure that it would like really mess us up by not doing that. And now we can play Pinpoint, Avenger, and Watchwolf in the same turn. This goes down to 3 toughness. And we could choose to trade off any of our 3 power creatures. That's fine. Okay. Generally not a huge fan of this card. I wonder why they're running it. Okay, well, we got a little bit messed up there on our mana. Okay, we're not Wrathing next turn, so I think I'd rather Alarm Bell. Okay, got our 2-drop. Oh, I do not want to trade this, right? Yeah. Alright, we'll pass the turn. Next turn we can go Shrine and Watchwolf to continue trying to stabilize. Could potentially play Fallen Angel. Seeing what they do. Okay, I think I'm down to trade here. Question is, where else do I want to trade? I do want to kill Mammoth so I get value out of Day of Judgment, so I kind of like that. We're also going to heal up, so that's not too bad. They do get the elephants, but I think we're just going to be fine for the most part. I think we should just take this trade. And I'm going to get a little bit greedy here. Take the 5, get an additional block. Could have taken the 2 from Elephant and just kind of delayed things, but I think we're going to be okay. We've got so many answers to just big dumb creatures in our deck. Okay. Goo is a good one. Alright, we're really... our land is really being a little annoying. But it's fine. Interesting. We've got healer. So we're almost certainly going to Wrath next turn. So the question is, how much do I want to commit to the board this turn? I think Shrine of Valor, although it's less mana efficient, is probably correct. So I think let's do that. It spots us a blocker this turn. They're probably going to continue to commit after they crash with everything. I'm going to take this too, because now I don't have to worry about this blocking. I mean, I'll probably Day of Judgment away anyway on my turn. Alright, so let's see how much more we can commit them to the board. So I can get armor on this next turn. Don't really want to take 7 though, and I've got favorables. Alright, let's block here first. We do block here, and then we'll just take the trade here. See what else they'll commit to the board. They also have double Day of Judgment, so it's just going to be pretty hard for them to fight through. Like, if they play a Mammoth here, probably just Day of Judgment, make my flyer. If they play some small stuff and we can stabilize and, you know, make another turn of them committing, then that's probably better. This Watchwolf is doing a lot of blocking due to our healing ability, which is really nice. Opponent's really thinking. Yep, it's a good play. Alright, so they got 4 mammoths in the deck total. Okay. Nice. So the question is, do I want to commit here? And I don't think I need to just yet. But what is my game plan after that? I'm wondering if I want to hold on to this charge and either Second Sun and be okay with maybe taking a bunch of damage here. This is 13, 16. That is a lot. It's going to be very hard for them to stabilize, though. Alright, so I think instead... Okay. I think we can just... We can commit a little bit here to the board. I think that's okay. Alright. Just throw away this Watchwolf, I think. Question is, do I care about them drawing 2 cards here? I think I just let that be. Okay. Alright, that is enough value for me to Wrath of God. They get to draw a card, they gain 3 life. And they'll have answers here, but we've got the Serra's Judgment for at least one of the Tramplers. Got Sun Titan coming down potentially on the same turn. Yeah. This is where we start to get ahead. Interesting. Would I rather... Yeah, I think I'd rather just apply pressure with Sun Titan. I could just offer the trade here instead of using Judgment. Yeah, because I'm not getting that much out of it. So yeah, I'll just play the Disciple, grab another Angel. Cool. Eminent Archangel, not the worst. The Flyers do tend to just be pretty nice. It's hard for our opponent to deal with them. 4 I don't really care about. I don't think they're going to run any traps. Could also just take 7 and get the swing back. Feels a little greedy though. I think I just take the 1 for 1 and I'll take the 4. Okay, another Mammoth. Sure. Alright, we can gain 4 health. We've got 10 mana. Could also play Pinpoint Adventure and crack the Cocoon. And I do want to get Second Sun's Dawn in the deck, so I think that's going to be the play. Let's do that, and let's just Shrine of Valor. And now our opponent's top decking. We have a bunch of cards in hand. And, yeah, I mean, this is kind of how it goes in the mid-range matchups. Yeah. I can't really take 6 every turn. So I could... Now I could consider blocking here, which I think I will, to get the Avenger. Hit both of these, and I'll just take the 2. That's fine. They're going to get a little got by the fact that they attacked with Cocoon, which is very funny, because I don't think that's ever come up for me. But yeah, I think this is a mess. Okay, Flagrant Foul is fine. The fact that, you know, and this is something that Awdasea said, like, the fact that you've already gotten a 2/3 and then you make a 4/4, and so they're spending a Flagrant Foul on half of your card. Not the worst case scenario. Alright, let's get the value here. So they don't get too much else. Get our attack in. Not going to play Fallen Agent yet. I think this turn it's just going to be, yeah. I mean, cashing that in, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but I think that's correct. Does it care about the toughness? I don't think so. I think I'll just take the life, and I'll get my other flyer. Got a full board. Oh, Matron Mouse. Not the worst card to get, but yeah. Unless you're playing against an opponent that maybe has sweepers or like enough card advantage to stay up with you, it's going to be pretty tough. So this is definitely ideally how the matchup goes. You know, you're at 31 life, right? Your opponent was trying to pressure you the whole game, but at some point you just slam a Day of Judgment or use your spot removal. Yeah. GG. GG. I think we'll try and get one more matchup because the games do tend to be a bit long. Although the games are long, they're not as long as you would think. And I do think it is still a really reasonable deck to climb with, depending on what matchups you're seeing. Right? I think if you're seeing a lot of Teferi, you probably don't want to play as much of this. But I think against most everything else, it's got a relatively decent matchup. Let's see what else we can get here. Okay. I played against Pepe earlier. I think his Moreland Haunt went off like 1,000,000 times. But we won it. So I think this is one of the better matchups as well against the Johnny. I've seen a lot more of Johnny last couple days. I think this is my 5th or 6th match playing against it. And obviously we have a pretty solid hand here. Leonin to sort of clog up the board, Immolating Glare to hit their big creatures, Power Word Stun, same thing. We just have really efficient spot removal, and in a meta where people are not going as big, spot removal can be really efficient. And White's got access to, as we can see, some of the best ones. Predator is fair enough. Card is a bit annoying, but obviously we've got plenty of answers to it. And here I think I'm just going to slam the Serra's Judgment because it's not a good blocker, so it really does stop this card from making any sort of progress. Sometimes Serra Judgment is awkward because you're trying to attack through it, but most of the time it's not because you're running flyers, and you get flyers off of your Serra's Disciple as well. Wolf, sure. Yep, just getting their buffs on their cards. Nice. Obviously a good card to draw. I'm going to do this first, see what we hit. Okay. Not a bad one to hit. Question is, do I want to make him trade his wolf here, or do I want to try and get the favorable here? I think I'm just going to offer this. Okay. Oh, Champion's Grits. Well, that is a way to play around Serra's Judgment. We do have plenty of other removal for it, however. Okay. That's fine. I'll just take 4 here. I don't think there's really a reason to start trading off. We're really only taking 3 anyway. That card's not bad. And I haven't seen the Healer's Kit package in so long, but it isn't bad. Okay, our land kind of got us again. It's funny because that hasn't really happened too much to me lately. So Power Word Stun is more mana efficient, which is why I want to do it. And obviously this is going to get bigger, so I think it's just going to be this. I would have loved to make him commit a little bit more into this, but I'd rather go like Desperate Prayer and Glare next turn than just Power Word and Prayer. Yep. Just take the 4. Wave. Yep. We're getting big over there. But it's not really going to matter because we just are going to have a lot of ways to deal with what they're doing. They actually take it back. I think I should not have done this. I think I should have Immolating Glared, holding that up, and then this turn I would go Power Word Stun and Desperate Prayer. But I can also just double Immolating Glare. The problem is I get a 50-50 on these two. But I'll definitely kill the Goyf. And then that makes them commit to the board more. I think I kind of like doing this better. Okay, nice. That's just like such a good throwaway blocker. Let's see what we hit. Okay, interesting. Alright. And we're just going to hang out here. Let's get in some blocks. Definitely not going to block here, because then they get a free creature off it. Okay. Alright, well that's good. I'm glad they played that. Yeah, I don't love taking 7, but I am going to take 7. Might as well block, because we're almost assuredly going to Wrath here. Play the creature so they don't get the proc. Yep. And you know what time it is. Wrath, Watchwolf. Okay, so we'll see what their response is. We might have to prep double Immolating Glare and play like a Watchwolf. Or actually, we'll probably play Desperate Prayer. Ooh. Hunger of the Overworld, and they got Briarhorn back. That's not a bad recovery for the opponent. Not bad at all. Sun Titan, huh? I do like a Sun Titan. I think I'm going to do that. Because I don't want to play it and have it get Avacyned anyway. And then I think I do want to have another blocker in case they have double removal, or removal for this. And in a deck like this, you're just playing the long game. So here I'm actually just gonna do it. The question is, do I want to take 11? Probably not. As much as I'd love to greed here. Oh, that is pretty rough. Okay. Well, this game's getting more interesting by the moment. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Alright, so I think I'd rather do this. Okay. So hopefully no removal. Just swing alling. Okay. They played 2 Champions Grids, so I don't think they have that in their hand. I'm gonna block here. Taking a lot, but again, we just like have so much life to work with. Brontosaurus, yep. Fair enough. Very good to have these Immolating Glares in our hand. So we can go 3/3, Prayer, Watchwolf. That's probably the play. So let's Desperate Prayer first. Shrine. Cool, cool. Now let's see what we hit off of Avacyn here. Regna. Nice, not bad. We get to hit Dino for a bit. And then double prep this. We get to Avenger next turn if we need to, which is nice. Sure. 1/1. Wonder if they have a way to get Brontosaurus back. This is 7. We're going to crack back for 9, 10, 11, 12. I think this is fine. What do you got? What do you got? Daybreak Ranger. Okay. Fair enough. Brightspear. Nice. This is an interesting situation. So I could just slam Strahd and attack. think I like Unsealed and Shrine better, though. Offer the trade here. Makes sense. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have a second one. Feel a little bad about that. Oh. Okay, we don't get the debut, but turn our 2/3 into a 6/6 flyer. Oh, man. Yeah, sometimes you really, really spike off of the 2/1. I can never remember the name. Apprentice. And it's just pretty nasty. Getting double Avacyn off of it. Honestly, playing one Avacyn in this deck might be the move. Cut one of the shrines for it, or like maybe trim one of the early game cards because you might not need it. Why are you attacking here? Champion Script, maybe like an armor. I think I'd rather see it here first than nothing. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. They must just have like the most awkward draw. Yeah, no need to play these. We've got the cool Nombo here. Day of Judgment. Okay. Interesting. Huh. Do they have a way to kill me if I play Strahd here? Probably not. We're also just so ahead on life. Like, does it actually make sense to do that? I don't think so, because I get to play Brightspear here, and then I get to play Shrine. And then I can play this post-combat next turn. Okay, I'm going to block here first. Oh. I think I'm okay just trading here. See what they get. Spirit. Stage, sure. Cool. So we could do this. Just don't think we need to. I don't even have to trade here either. I could just hold and then play Avenger. They do have Moorland Haunt, but oh, yeah, I don't love them hitting that. Gotta be honest. I'll take the 8 though. Just get the free card for Avenger. That's fine. Trostani. Okay, nice. So I can get the free attack. So let's see it. Yeah. Still probably worth it. And then maybe a Trostani to heal. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm inclined to play Strahd. Pretty hard to remove this for me. Predator does have reach. It's not a bad one to necessarily hit. So Icing Death kills this, but it kills these two. Attack with everything. They block, they go to 7. It's probably just not worth it, even. Hit with the team here. No good blocks for the enemy except for this. Yeah, and here I think we just go wide. Make the soldiers. That should be game. Yeah. Nice. Well, our opponent actually had a pretty solid draw. I gotta say, Pepe's deck, I like the Ulvenwald monstrosities. Not a bad card to be playing right now. I feel like you actually do get pretty decent advantage having a, you know, Champion's Grit and stuff like that. But I just think about this deck, like, you instantly feel if the matchup is good or bad for you. And I think against Vraska and a Johnny, definitely it's not a good matchup. You just have so much card advantage. You've got 4 sweepers, and they can't really overcome your life advantage. Like, that's what I found with Garruk as well. Like, unless you have a really, really good draw and you're able to really, really pull ahead. Let's put the deck up here for reference. It's just so hard to overcome the life differential. You're able to trade off these like crappy Serra's Disciples and like the Leonin healers, but then you've got some decent blockers with Watchwolf, with Avenger, Geist. You've got all this removal. You've got little cheap dirtly guys off the Knight and stuff like that. And then you just make your opponent commit to the board to try and kill you because you're gaining a ton of life, right? And they're just trying to overcome you. And they play into a Day of Judgment or play into an Icing Death. And then obviously they can't really play around Second Sun. So it's just, it really has quite a great balance. Like, obviously playing with Avacyn there, it felt really, really good. I'm wondering if it's actually just better to have Avacyn over Strahd, potentially. Because Avacyn's a little bit cheaper. It's very, very impactful, even with your, like, kind of bad draws in the late game. And, like, although Strahd is a kind of you have to answer it or you lose sort of thing, it's still a pretty awkward card to play. Like, you saw me debating there, like, is it worth it to play this and try and close it out? It's kind of like Kothafed, but Kothafed is obviously a hell of a lot better. So I don't know. I do really like the Shrine of Valors. Like, they just do a ton of work. Like, I'm really, really happy with this 30-card list. Like, there's not much in here after playing, 20 games with it that I would want to change. With those 2 games, we're 17-3 across those 20 games. Nissa were 2 of the losses, and then Ral was the other loss. Nissa, I think, is one of the decks that's going over the top of you, but I still think it's winnable. And then Ral, it just depends on if they're able to like really, really go off on you. If they're playing Wizard class, it's a little hard to deal with, I would say. But your Immolating Glares, Serra Judgments, Power Word Stuns do quite a lot of work against their monstrosities and their Thing in the Ice. So yeah, I'm not a huge Serra fan, but I really think that this deck that Awdasea has worked on, like, it does what it's supposed to do. And I think if you're seeing a ton of Garruk, and you're climbing, and you're also just looking for a change up, like I played a lot of Nissa last season, I played a lot of Garruk this season. I do think that Garruk is the best deck in the format. Probably not a spoiler for anyone. And I think Serra is actually a really, really good answer to that. And I actually think her matchups across the field are not terrible. I think she has a very favorable matchup into Garruk. Fine matchup into Nissa. I think it's kind of 50-50. I think Nissa maybe gets a little bit of the edge. Teferi, it also kind of depends. Teferi probably gets a little bit of the edge. But then against like every mid-range deck, including Liliana, which it's hard to think of decks that have a really good matchup into her. You just have so many ways to deal with what she's doing. And it's really clear that the deck just beats out pretty much every mid-range deck besides Nissa. And I think that is a really powerful place to be. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But take my word for it, this deck is worth building, firing up, and playing on the ladder. It takes a little bit of time to get the sequencing right. But as you can see, your opponents are trying to get your life total down because you're able to gain so much life. You keep making them commit to the board. You wipe the board. You reset. You've got like 4 or 5 cards in your hand because of the card advantage that you have. And your opponent's got maybe 1 or 2. And it's just going to be really hard for them to turn it around after that. So I hope you liked the video. I know the game is feeling like we need some changes, but we've got a new season coming up. I wish you all the best of luck in your top 100 push, and be on the lookout for the tournament report video and the interviews with the finalist players in the final match. No spoilers. It's a good matchup to be watching. It's one that you're going to learn a lot from. And from 2 of the best players that I've gotten to play with, Knight and Tino. So again, as we close out, shout out to Awdasea. Thank you for sharing this deck. Thank you for also being willing to talk to me about it. Again, I love this community and I love this game. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks.